And in which war did you serve?
Vietnam War.
What branch of the service were you in?
I was in the Army, in the 1st Air Cavalry.
And what was your highest rank?
E4, Specialist.
So Jerry, tell me, how did you get in the service? Were you drafted or did you enlist?
At first, I got a draft notice, and then I went to enlist in the Army.
Do you recall the year?
1969. I just turned 19 years old.
So when you got your draft notice, at that point you have the opportunity to go and enlist?
Yes, I spoke to all the branch recruiters locally, and I decided on the Army.
Why did you choose the Army?
One of the branches where it was the quickest way to get your service over with.
Where were you living at the time?
I was living in New Britain.
Oh, so you're in New Britain all your life.
Yeah.
After your induction into the Army, where did you go for your basic training?
My first assignment was report to Fort Dix, New Jersey in November.
In November of '69?
Correct.
What was that like?
It was a dead of winter. It was very cold that winter. And it was, with all the rumors of war going on, most of us thought that we would likely see Vietnam sooner or later.
So you knew right from the beginning you'd probably be going to Vietnam?
Pretty much, yes.
What did they teach you at Fort Dix?
Just the basic Army skills that everybody gets.
After your basic training, did you get leave to go home?
Yes. Yeah, we had a short vacation. Yes.
And then where did you go?
Okay, after visiting home, I believe it was about the end of February, or during the month of February, I believe. I began at the Advanced Infantry Training. They posted us at Fort Lewis, Washington.
So this would have been February of 1970.
Yeah, I think it was about that time, yeah.
How long were you at Fort Lewis for AIT?
That lasts about 9 weeks, I think.
And what kinds of things did they teach you there?
Advanced Infantry Training, how to shoot machine guns, for instance, and, all the basic infantry skills,
So you were being trained to be an infantryman. You knew right then you were going to be infantry?
Right. They teach you how to be an infantry soldier there.
After your AIT at Fort Lewis, where did you go?
Then everybody, upon graduation there, you get orders for other deployments. Few people got assigned to Europe. A few got assigned to Korea. Most got assigned to Vietnam. That's where I got the paperwork to go to Vietnam.
Wow. Did you get to go home? Or did you go straight to Vietnam?
They let you go home for a leave once you get those orders in your hand. And they give you orders of where to report to next for your transportation to your next assignment.
When did you actually leave for Vietnam?
June.
So June of '70. Where did you leave from?
I think from home I had to go back to the New Jersey area, I believe. I think it was back from Fort Dix, and they took a large group from there. I think one of the adjoining Fort Dix, there's an Air Force base there, and they had big military planes where I think that's where my trip to Vietnam started, if I recall correctly.
So you went on a military aircraft to go to Vietnam?
I think the first step but mostly they used commercial aircraft. I think the first step was, I think, on a military plane to some other base or airport. I don't remember. But then they use chartered civilian aircraft to bring you to Vietnam. In fact, you're on a civilian plane when you get to the big air base in Vietnam. Yeah.
Where did you land in Vietnam?
Let's see. From the United States, we landed in Alaska, and then I believe from Alaska, I think they stopped for fuel in the middle of the Pacific someplace, like Guam or somewhere. And then I believe you changed planes again, another aircrew, civilian aircraft. And then it was Bien Hoa Air Base. It's like a huge airport there.
What was your first impression of Vietnam when you get off the plane in Bien Hoa?
Busy place. A lot of hustle and bustle. And right away you see, you're warned of, before you disembark at the plane, you're warned of hostilities could take place. Like if there was incoming, like artillery attack or something, they warn you about that. And then right away you'll see people with weapons around all over, It's a big transit point. A lot of coming and going. It's a busy place, 24 hours a day.
So
and I think it was nighttime. I believe it was nighttime when we landed. So it was, it's the first of experience of its kind to me. And the hustle and bustle. And then they put you on buses or trucks, I don't remember which, and to the next transit point where, they had main entry points for new soldiers, and then the sorting process begins there. New troops to replace troops that are going home or casualties or whatever.
Where did you go from Bien Hoa?
From there to a transit point, someplace, I don't recall what the name of the place was, but it was a good-sized base. And from there, they give you orientation. I think like 10 days or so. 10 days, 2 weeks of the languages of the country, the, health and safety stuff, what the Army's trying to do there, blah, blah, blah. A few classroom type of deals. And you're waiting on a specific area, unit to go to. How they're distributing. Because most of the guys are drafted. You don't go there as a whole unit. You're like an individual. According to your skill, you get assigned to as a replacement. Like people are going home. That unit lost an infantryman. Well, they'll take an infantryman and plug the hole. That's what they did.
So where did they place you? So you're just a replacement.
Right. You're at a central depot,
yeah.
and say a bunch of guys like me are infantrymen. Whatever that unit they call in, whatever, to replace troops that are going home or wounded or whatever. I happen to get chosen to be assigned to go to the 1st Air Cavalry. They needed a infantryman. So that's how I got assigned there.
And where was your first location?
I don't know. They flew me out on a helicopter to some remote fire base. Just like that. Welcome to the 1st Air Cavalry. And somebody on NCO or somebody will go through, there was a few of us, maybe half a dozen. And we're led to a tent in this muddy place. And most of us had our big packs, those big with your clothing, possessions, whatever. Because they didn't give us a list ahead of time of what to bring for that tropical climate and all that. So a lot of guys brought, all kinds of stuff. And then, when you go to an infantry unit, right away they're going to want to put you on the line in your company. And if your company happened to be in the field already, you have to catch up to them. So what they do is give you a whole bunch of stuff. They give you a rucksack and assign you a rifle and canteens, all the field gear. At the same time, you're unpacking your articles of clothing that you bought from home. And somebody's over there, you won't need this, you won't need that. You might want this, you might want that. But all that's got to fit into the rucksack. So you can't be lugging a whole a big bag of stuff with you into the field. If that's where you're going eventually. So some of the stuff they just toss into the garbage, or they just give it away or destroy it or whatever. So then you get your new field gear, and then it's a matter of hurry up and catch up to where your new squad is, wherever they may be at the time. So you might. I'm trying to think if I spent a night in that tented area. Yeah, probably, to wait for helicopter transport to where my new unit was.
What was your new unit?
It was D Company, and my platoon. I don't know if they were all together or yeah. My company was in a fire support base, like probably 100 meters off the Cambodian border, out in the boonies somewhere.
So you had to go out there?
So I had to go. That was my indoctrination from being on that big base, just getting transported after, like 10 days away from home. I was already going to some mud hole in the bushes. Yeah, it was quite a transition.
Wow.
Yeah. From wearing heavy cotton Army gear over here for training in the cold weather. Then you go to the tropical uniforms that they give you there on the spot, which is not your clothes anyway, because everything's a central laundry. When you're in Vietnam, you don't have your own clothes. Everything comes from a central laundry. It's all washed together, and if your shirt has a name on it, it won't be yours. It will be somebody else's name on it. 9 times out of 10, if you're infantry soldier. Like I saw one day one of the scouts, a native of Vietnam, with my name on his shirt. Not that it makes a difference, because you just look for the size in the laundry. That's what you get, because a lot of times you'll be wearing the same clothes for 10 days. Yeah, everybody's a smelly man when you're in infantry, man. When you're on the field, you get immune to the smell.
When you flew out to this fire base near Cambodia, is that where you stayed for most of your time in Vietnam?
No. That was only temporary. That was a matter of. I think I spent one night on that place. I think it was late in the day. I went out there on a supply helicopter with everything I owned in a rucksack. It was poorly assembled. Nobody taught me how to actually put it all together. I got to my company, got to my platoon, got assigned a squad right there on the spot. And everybody at the same time, there was a hustle and bustle going on, because they were preparing to get off of that fire support base, because the whole company was there, and getting ready to split up and go individually, I believe, by platoons to walk off that base. So I think the next morning, after a couple hours that evening, it got dark. I got assigned to a squad. We slept together in one area. And in the morning was a big hustle and bustle to assemble all the stuff, get all our rations together. And I came out of there with, like, I don't know, carrying so much weight, so much stuff to carry. It was probably had to be 90 pounds. And I was like a 130-pound guy. And I had 90 pounds of stuff to carry one way or another to go trudging through the bushes unknown. Yeah. And I didn't know anybody's name hardly at all or anything.
Wow, welcome to Vietnam.
Yeah. A lot of these fellas, they were from all over the place. I was just by myself, didn't know anybody. Just, they pointed out, well, here's your platoon leader, that's your platoon sergeant. Didn't have no time to learn their names or anything. You're gonna be a rifleman, okay? You're carrying, okay, all your stuff. Get so many quarts of water. Get so much food. blah blah blah. You know, somebody else. You'd be watching the other guys how they're packing their stuff, and you got to try to copy them. And then ammunitions, food, water. Okay, if you had to carry machine gun rounds, I think I had. Besides my rifle, I think I had a pick or a shovel. So I had a rifle in one hand, a pick or a shovel in the other hand. Probably machine gun rounds on my back on top of that. And then you got to have a couple smoke grenades, hand grenades hanging off you. 400 rounds for your own rifle. I believe it was... I'm not sure if it was 3 days or 4 days. Usually... they used to call it a log, you know, logistics. When you walk out into the field as an infantry troop, you'd carry mostly 3 days. 3 days worth of food and water you'd have to bring with you. So that's like 10 quarts of water, which is very heavy. 3 days worth of food, 2 days of canned food, 1 dry meal. That's a day's ration. Get like breakfast and lunch will be a can. And you save your the warm-up style dehydrated meal for the evening, you know, because in the evening you'd have time to boil water and empty it into that dehydration. You know, it was a dry meal. It takes hot water to soften it up, you know, to make like a stew out of it. So you'd save that for your evening meal, you know.
When you got assigned to that company and platoon, is that the same platoon you stayed with the whole time?
Yeah, yeah. Once you get assigned to a company, you're there for the duration. Yeah.
Right, so when you trudged off that fire base, where did you go?
Just the game of hide and seek begins. You're just looking for enemy, and they're looking for you. It's a big game of hide and seek.
Wander around out in the jungle.
Correct. And while you're out there, that's where you learn your real infantry training. Because as you get into a squad, you have a leader. Okay, a rifle company, you know, you're in a regular rifle company, infantry company. Everybody's trained to be a rifleman. And then, say, depending on how large the squad is, there's a medical man, 1 machine gun, or 2 machine guns. You know, it requires a gunner and an assistant. That's 2-man team. And then you'll have one guy probably as a grenade launcher carrier. We didn't carry mortars with us. We're just light, very light infantry company. Mostly, our weapons were rifles, M60 machine guns as your main firepower, and 40 millimeter grenade launchers. And then you have your command people. Okay, you'd have your sergeant and your radio operator are always together, you know, and your medic, you know. So our squad was maybe, the first squad was like a dozen people. It varies how many people you have, you know, and how often, how small the units are split up. Like to cover a lot of ground in an enemy area, sometimes very rarely went out in a whole company strength of 100 guys or more. The whole D company's, you know, like 4 platoons. So if you had 4 platoons of 20-something guys, you know, you split that in half. Sometimes I go out with squad strength, sometimes platoon strength, you know, 30 guys at the most platoon. But it depends. And then you'd have branch off on small patrols. Because you're covering ground, what you're doing. You're sweeping areas. So a company gets assigned to spend a week in such and such to cover so much ground. You know, searching every nook and cranny for enemy, signs of enemies anywhere, you know. And you're in the field. They keep us away from cities. You're scouring the countryside to where the enemies could hide, you know. It's crazy. It's hide and seek all the time.
How many days would you spend in the field before you'd actually get to go back to a base?
Oh, sometimes over a month straight. Over a month straight, yes. You'd only hear from leadership, from your fire support team, when the helicopters would bring you food and water for the next 3 days. That's the only contact you'd have with anybody else. Otherwise, you're just living with, say, a platoon of men or a squad of men day by day. And then at the end of 3 days, you call up your helicopter units and they deliver the supplies, your ammunition, your food, water, and say every, depending how lucky you were, laundry, They wouldn't deliver laundry every 3 days. Clean clothes every 3 days, no. Just food and water and bullets if you needed them, Sometimes every 10 days you would get clothes. Every third one. If they brought you 3 days of food, you go for another 3 days, you probably never see the aircraft or anybody else again for 3 days. You're just there with those 12 people. You march all day, walk all day, and as the sun is going down, when it gets dark, everything shuts down. Nothing moves. You get up with the sunlight, and you go to bed with when the sunlight goes down. That's your day. You live you build your own shelter every evening. You're constantly patrolling, walking.
So you're never in the same spot.
Never in the same spot. Very rarely. Occasionally you'll spend depending on what's going on. If a unit next to you, say there's another unit next to you, like another squad or another platoon, a few miles away, and there are signs of enemy going some direction or whether, you would try to coordinate how to find them together, box them in, or whatever, Sometimes you'll say, stay this way, go that way, Set up an ambush in the evening to try to trap, prevent somebody from going a certain direction. Yeah, it's a little complicated, but generally you're always on the move, moving.
Your job was as a rifleman. What weapon did you use?
Most of the time you just carry an M16. But
what can you tell me about the M16?
M16? It's just a standard military rifle. But as you train in a squad, they teach you different jobs. New guys are not lucky. They try to break you in. When the troops that are out there a long time get new guys, they train the new guys to do the dirtiest jobs to begin with. So they teach you how to use the compass to be a point man. That means you go first. If you're walking point, the leadership will tell you, your squad leader or your platoon leader or whatever, okay, they'll show you the map. Today we are going in such and such a direction. So many degrees, whatever. Here's a machete. You're the point man. We're following you. Go. So you're the leader going through the bushes. And sometimes you can hack your way through with a machete even. And then you'll have somebody behind you. You be the eyes and ears of the group. You're walking in a file in a line. There's no roads, you're just trudging through the whatever's out there. And then everybody else is behind you. Then, if you're lucky enough to get through that unscathed, they teach you another job, another job, exciting. Putting out the trip flares every night. When you camp for the evening, as part of infantry defense, okay, it's like the old cowboy movies where you circle the wagons, when they were Indian territory crossing the west. That's how you do it when in infantry in a war zone. Small band of guys, you form a circle at night. You dig a foxhole. Couple of fighting positions in the evening, depending on how many people you have. Like a small group can maintain quiet and darkness very easily. A larger group is tougher because you're carrying around all kinds of stuff that could be clanging and banging, you know, metal objects, weapons, you know. People got to go to the toilet, okay? The toilet is a shovel. You go outside the sleeping area, you dig a little hole, and you squat. That's the toilet, and then you cover it up. So that creates noise. And it gets people, you know, in the bushes and all that. People are very on edge all the time. Everybody has to whisper all the time, to be quiet. You gotta try not to make noise, you know, etc. There's wildlife out there. There's weather out there. You know, there's sticks to step on, you know, the crack. The name of the game is quiet. So you're sneaking around out there, trying to live, cook, get comfortable, and if there's bad weather, it only compounds everything. So that's why everything shuts down at night, because lights attract attention. You could see like a glare of a flashlight in open ground. You could see that from far away, and you don't know if that's friend or foe. Okay, and you got to.
So what about the trip flares?
Okay, getting to that, another job that new guys get is setting trip flares. That's an early warning signal. If you're being attacked from enemy soldiers, we used to set trip flares. They would pop and light up all of a sudden by tripwire. Somebody has to go set the tripwires in the evening outside the perimeter. You know, you're in a small, say if you're in a small group, setting trip flares is not that difficult, you know. It could take you half an hour only. You just use it. They're attached to small trip flares. They're about 6 inches long or so. And they're meant to be, they're spring loaded. Cap flies off and they'll light up if somebody makes contact with the wire. So some soldier has to set the trip wires outside the perimeter where your guys are being protected inside. So if somebody walks towards your position, they hit a flare, say an enemy soldier is out there standing in the you know, he's a deer caught in the headlights, somebody will kill him. Or another job is you have to set claymores, anti-personnel mines, every evening right behind your trip flares. So that's how you know, infantry soldiers, to keep themselves safe. That's what we used to do. Had to set anti-personnel mines out there and trip flare wires outside of that. So if somebody's coming at you, say that evening, if they were following you, they're not going to confront you when you could see them real well. They'll probably come at dusk or wait till early morning before everybody has arisen and try to attack you. But if they bump into the wires, you still have your defenses set up. Now in the evening, as soon as it gets dark enough, boom, you're in place. Because under the big trees, it is pitch black. Pitch black. You cannot see anything. And you do not want to be lighting cigarettes or turning on, you know, all the cooking is stopped by then. All the illumination is stopped by then. Once your day is sunrise and sunset. No choice. Then the infantry soldier has to get up to pull guard. Somebody has to be awake throughout the night to listen to the radio and listen for enemy movement. So the new guys will get the worst times of the night to get up to pull guard. Okay, everybody has to have a turn. You know, in fact, the more guys you get in a small group, so depending on, okay, if you got a large number of troops, you need more guards. You'll need maybe 4, north, south, east, and west. Okay, because you got a bigger space to, you'll have a foxhole over there, one over there, one over there, and one guy's got to be awake. So if there's 4 squads, it's not too bad if you got a lot of guys. You maybe have to pull 45 minutes guard. The next guy will wake you up every 45 minutes. Here's the timer or whatever. Listen to the radio over there for 45 minutes. Listen, pull guard. And then wake up the next guy. Before everybody goes to bed, know where's the guy before you and where the guy is next. Because it's very hard to get along in a pitch black. To get around, you want to be close because sometimes if you're in a more open area, you can barely see if it's a moonlit night. But like if you're in a heavy forest at night, moonlight isn't going to do anything for you. So it's blacker than black. It's dark. So you're feeling your way around pretty much. Some evenings, it's kind of terrifying out there, And another thing for an infantry soldier, gotta put up with the weather. Like I said, for the first quite a few months of my tour, when I was in that company, walking off the fire base, air mattresses weren't allowed, hammocks weren't allowed. We had to sleep on only a poncho on the ground. You put a poncho on the ground, smooth it out the best you can. That's your bed and your panzer liner and maybe a canteen. Okay, you'd have to string up mosquito nets on these makeshift shelters, and your roof is another poncho tied together. You see the stuff we used to make with bootlaces. Sometimes we get nylon ropes if that's available, but we used to make some ingenious contraptions with bootlaces. Believe me, ponchos, bootlaces, whatever, and fashion things with machetes, and you learn how to build shelters because it's miserable to be soaking wet and muddy, and try to get up. If you don't sleep well the next day, trudging through that stuff, it can be pretty miserable, with the mosquitoes and all. Tough way to live. A lot of folks will get sick. They'd get infections from, and then you got to contend with critters, snakes, insects. I once had a guy who went into a bee's nest, was nearly killed by bees. Come to find out he was allergic. And he stumbled upon a bee's nest one day. He was screaming and everything. But luckily we had a medic that knew what to do right away, saved the guy's life. And I gave him a shot right away. And you never know what you walk into. When you come up to a river or something, you got to use your imagination to cross it. I'm telling you, you're fighting the elements as much as the enemy, I was more afraid of accidents and illness. I almost got clipped by my own guys more often than the bad guys. Accidents, when you're dealing with scared men, can do some crazy things. Accidents, anti-personnel mines, they'll trigger those things, and those things are very dangerous. Accidentally firing, loaded weapons. People walking around with their fingers on the trigger. How many times people just do stupid things, You're as likely to get killed by a friendly fire accident as enemy fire. Believe me. Even aircraft accidents, vehicle accidents, all sorts of things. There's so many ways that a soldier can be taken out of action. It's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. It's a fact. It's scary. You get sick. You can get, nature can get you. Drowning can get you. Fire can get you. Accidents. People.
So for your entire year in Vietnam, and you were in the D Company, did you spend the entire year traipsing around and being a grunt out?
Yeah, I was in the field the whole time. Yeah, either on patrol, in the field, or in a fire support base, which is close. You're technically in the field all the time, and those things move around. Sometimes your fire support base, they call that because that's where your artillery is. All right. The soldiers, we only operate under cover of your artillery. So how far the artillery can shoot, you're being covered. Because, okay, when you're only equipped with rifles and machine guns, your backup is your artillery and then your airborne artillery, which is helicopters, which are hard, are few and far between. They're hard to come by. We rely on, as a battalion, we'd have so many artillery pieces. They place them on a hillside, on a top of a hill. Once all that area is cleared of enemy or whatever suspected, they go to the next area, and you'd hop around like that. Your battalion would go. So you get your satellite companies patrolling under the protection of this artillery, and once you say, oh, this area is cleansed of enemy, time to move So that's what they do. They destroy that place, move all your artillery pieces to the next hill, and so on. Leapfrogging all over the place. So I don't know how many square miles we covered just playing hide and seek like that, but that's what we did.
Did you see combat while you were out there in the bush?
Only a few times. Small unit actions.
Do you recall any specific incidents?
The biggest fight I ever was in, we lost. Well, I wouldn't say we lost. Yeah, we did. We got one, I don't remember the month or anything. It was early in my tour. We went out, the whole company of us, entire D company, did a helicopter assault and all that. We spent one quiet evening, and we knew that suspected enemy were close by. So that's why we had a whole company. That morning, when everybody was getting up soon after sunrise, boom, we had an automatic ambush go off. That was, okay, I mentioned the trip flares and landmines, anti-personnel mines we used to set up for our defenses. Well, that evening's defenses in the morning caught somebody in a trip mine. An enemy had come first light to come take a look at us. He was killed. We killed one enemy in the morning with an anti-personnel mine. I don't know, his friends, if somebody got away, got a look at us and took off and reported, hey, there's a bunch of Americans coming after you. Later that day, okay, we got one kill. So after a tense breakfast, 100 D companies started going down this trail. And probably 11 in the morning or something like that, they had reciprocated. They set up an ambush on us. They let some troops go by, a classic ambush position. And another, first platoon, I think, was walking first that day. My platoon happened to be lucky walking last that day. So we used to take turns, okay? One day, because the point position can be very dangerous. You're the first ones to make contact with something unknown. So I think first platoon, they let some guys, one squad, go through, and they had set up an ambush. And it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. First, then the blast. I mean, when automatic weapons open up all at once, it's deafening and it's terrifying and deafening at the same time. Everybody hits the ground. A minute later, it's all gone. It's over with. They attack you with, say, one magazine burst, maybe two, and then they run away. It could have been no more than maybe half a dozen guys. I couldn't tell you. By the time my platoon got up there to investigate in the front, every other guy in the first platoon was a casualty. Yeah. 4 killed, 8 wounded. We got one of them in the morning, or correct. Then they reciprocated later in the morning. They got us in an ambush. 4 men were killed, 8 were wounded in a minute.
What platoon were you in?
Jesus, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember. 3rd, I think. 3rd platoon. I don't remember.
But it wasn't the first one. So.
No. We used to take turns. Like if you were with the company, one day, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd would take the point. It was decided by the officers, whatever, ahead of time. You take turns. Yeah. Point position is very dangerous. And the same goes, the last position could be very dangerous. Sometimes we used to call that point and drag. The last man will be walking drag. Pick up anything that anybody dropped and listen for somebody following you. A lot of times, okay, a small unit can a lot of times go a lot faster than a big unit. Okay? Like if you've got 100 Americans with all the stuff we're lugging around, we don't go that fast. We're loaded down heavy with all that equipment and food that we got. We ain't running through the bushes. We're walking. And enemy soldiers used to live off the land a lot easier than us. They were light and quick. They could come run around you and sneak up on you from behind. They're very clever. So you'd have a responsibility in the back too, otherwise, for people sneaking up behind you. You never know. It's crazy. It's being an infantry soldier, like playing at hide. It can be a little nerve-wracking. You get used to it, but it's tough. You're working day and night, trying to keep yourself healthy, and the time goes by sometimes quick, sometimes slow.
Did you sustain any injuries?
No, I was pretty lucky. Pretty lucky.
Jerry, I'm going to switch gears now and ask you some questions about daily life. Since your whole year was spent in the field, how did you stay in touch with your family?
Letters. You write letters. And every time you get your log, when they bring the food and ammo out to you, they bring you mail. Generally, most logs, your mail would catch up to you.
Were you a good letter writer? Did you write home a lot?
Oh yeah, I never wrote so much in my whole life as that year. I wrote letters to my mom, my girlfriend, my aunts and uncles. Yeah, I never wrote so many letters in my life because if you'd stop at the end of the day, if we had an early day and if you had some daylight left before you got all, if you had time to eat, build a shelter, and if there's any time left over, that's what you'd be doing, writing letters probably, reading and writing letters, if it wasn't pouring rain. You work around the weather, around the daylight, because like I mentioned, if you're trudging through mud, swamps, rivers, all that, your camera is not always available to you to take photographs. We used to keep the steel ammo cans. Most everybody infantry troop carried one of those in the bottom of his pack for your letter write material, your camera. You stick that in that indestructible ammo can because it had a rubber weatherproof seal on it. So if you had to cross a river and everything else got wet, your paper still would be dry. And your personal possessions and stuff, your camera wouldn't get destroyed. And your probably your spare cigarettes and stuff like that.
Your food, was it every single day you were eating rations that were thrown in?
Yeah. Every 3 days you get it's canned food or it's in a waterproof pack. That's it.
Did you ever have cooked meals?
Yeah, sometimes on the fire base they set us out in they had these cooler type of things. They go to the mess hall, fill up the coolers for you, and send out a hot meal. Yeah, most that third day, generally they sent out a hot meal with the water and everything.
But you were never located in a place where they actually had a dining hall where you could go?
Yeah, if you were on a fire support base, yeah. If you were on a fire, but that wouldn't be often. You know, that would sometimes weeks and weeks would go by, and then you're on a fire support base for a couple of days. All right, then you get into a mess line, and then some. You know, they have a few picnic tables over there. Homemade picnic tables they serve you. Otherwise, you just take your plate and go back to your hooch or whatever fighting position. Nothing fair. I mean, no mess halls with walls and stuff. The mess tent was just a tent, old style with the flaps and all. Like the flaps would be up because Vietnam is hot, you know, and it can be hot and dusty or hot and rainy. It could be rainy, windy, rainy. It's, you know, it's...
What about other supplies? Did you always have enough of everything you needed? Were there shortages of anything?
We were, First Air Care were pretty well supplied. Because you got because we're, even, what's good about being in a helicopter outfit is, you don't have to worry about roads that ain't safe. You could be out in the middle of the boonies, but when you got these big helicopters bringing you supplies, you know, you're pretty much well supplied. They'd always have enough fuel and food and this and that.
Ammunition.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you're in a firefight, that's their favorite thing. The Army. If you're involved with the enemy, you get everything. That's where if you're just out there camping, you're not getting any attention. You're just keep patrolling. If you don't see no enemy, they ignore you. I mean, you could stay dirty and hungry, they'll ignore you. But if you're the unit that is mixing it up with the enemy, you get all the attention, you get all the transportation you need, the helicopters, the bullets, because that's the name of the game. You know, that's where the attention goes for the. In a way, the officers, they loved it, that attention. You know, that's where the glory comes from. But the soldiers having to do it, no. I'd rather be in a quiet unit where nothing happens, because that hustle and bustle, hurry up, and all of that is dangerous.
Did you do anything special for good luck?
Not really. I used to try to help my fellow soldiers as much as possible. That's all. Keep everybody, you know, make friends with everybody. If you got a chance to teach them what you knew, like, you know, when the new guys come in, some people would ignore them. I says, you can't. I says, if you want somebody good in your squad, a lot of time I was appointed like temporary squad leader. Sometimes they'd ask me to go to the CP. When you get to be a senior guy and you know all the jobs, you know, you work your way up, you learn how. I mean, I was radio operator, point man. I used to take care of I had the only grenade launcher in the platoon. You know, they teach you all the stuff. You have to go to work out with the CP, with the command post sometimes. Like they used to loan me out as a radio operator sometimes for the company CO. If there's something going on, you know, guys are coming and going, like if they're going on leave, or you got a special mission, you know, like they need a bunch of volunteers to do this, that, you know, site assignments. Generally, it's not a good idea to volunteer for extra stuff, but sometimes I was dumb enough to do it. You know, you'd have to, you know, go here, go there, you know, for a day or two or whatnot, and then sometimes, you know, little small special deals, you know, they make you, you know, like a temporary squad leader for this and that or whatever, you know, but, you know, I wasn't a real E5 or nothing, a sergeant, but if, you know, they'd pick somebody that knew what was going on generally, so the senior guys would get stuck with stuff like that. You do a little extra here and there.
You tried to help your fellow soldiers out as much as possible. What was your opinion of your fellow soldiers?
Most of the guys are good. Most American They're hard workers. A lot of folks though, they didn't want to be there. A lot of people didn't want to be in Vietnam. And then my general opinion is draftees, having a lot of soldiers that don't want to be there, it's not a good idea either. You know, there's all kind of people. When there's a draft going on, you get a lot of people that don't want to do stuff. They had a big serious problem with drugs over there.
Any problem
insubordination. Some people would actually try to hurt themselves to get out of you know.
Was that the case in your unit?
Well, I heard about it. Oh yeah, drug use, try to hurt themselves or get in trouble, or say if they got sick or injured, they try to find a way never to come back. You know, sometimes I tell guys, I say, hey, wait a minute. If you got to go home on a personal leave for some reason, do what you can to not come back here. Because you've seen it. It's not good. Yeah. But from all the people that I met over there, you know, I mean, there was a lot of coming and going. You got to do the best you can with what you got. Because you're all in it together. So.
What did you think of the officers?
The officers, mostly positive. A lot of the young officers, they're like you. They're you know, they do their thing best they can. They get rotated a lot more quicker though. I mean, sometimes you get a platoon leader for 2-3 months, and that's it. I went through a lot of platoon leaders. Once you're stuck in the field as an enlisted guy, you're there.
Why rotated so quickly?
No, privilege. Rank has this privilege. They find other things for them to do. They get, I guess, I don't know if that's how they did it, I guess. I have no idea. I mean, I'm trying to think, at least 4, 5, maybe, 5 in a year. 5 platoon leaders, 5 first lieutenants, in and out. And I'm still in the same squad. Make up my mind. Who's in charge of this? Yeah, that's another thing that will make you think, you know? Here you are. You're fighting a whole war in the bush over there. And the officers, you know, they come in and put their 2-3 months in and, wow, they're out of here. I don't know. I don't think they went to another infantry unit. I don't think so. I think they got to go to the rear and they're planning stuff on maps. That's what I think they're doing. And then they're enjoying air conditioning. You know? The only air conditioning I got was a stiff breeze in the outside. That's the only air conditioning I got. Except for when you went on your R&R.
Now, when did you get to go on R&R?
Yeah, finally. I'm trying to think. I got there in June. And I think March of
Where
71. I went to Hong Kong.
So tell me about
because it's close.
Yeah.
Because, okay, like, guys that like Australia was an option. That's a long flight. It takes you a whole day to get there and a whole day to get back almost. It's another continent from Vietnam.
So you chose Hong Kong?
Yeah, because it's quick to get there.
So what was that like? Tell me about your
you come out of the field, right? You buy a few things at the PX, get a bag, something to wear on a plane, you know. Buy a shirt, a pair of slacks, get a pair of shoes, and personal hygiene stuff. Get your money, get on a plane, zoom, you go to the big Hong Kong airport, bang, you're back in the real world again. It's a shock.
Did you go by yourself or did you go
coming from, okay, you know what's terrifying?
What?
When you're walking all the time, or flying, which distorts, perception of travel. Driving in an automobile at 60 miles an hour, if you haven't been in a car for 6 months, going on a regular highway at 60 miles is terrifying. Yeah, you think it. Yeah, and so flying or walking distorts traveling fast over land in a car. Yeah, but once you're there, you remember. Yeah, yeah. You go to restaurants, you enjoy air conditioning. They'd have a list of hotels for you to go that didn't cost too much money. I'd stay in a little hotel, eating in restaurants. Oh man, that was the greatest. Because, and then
Did you go
shopping,
by yourself?
buying some clothes. No, you hook up with some other soldiers. A whole plane load of guys would go. There was like a regular, in a war zone like Vietnam with thousands of troops, on a daily basis, thousands of people are getting leave. It's, the Benoit Air Base, it's like a commercial airport and a combat airport at the same time. There are military aircraft on the edge over there, and then you got your civilian airliners going in and out all day long. Day and night, 7 days a week. It's a very busy place. So, you see combat troops over there. At the same time, you see people in civilian clothes jumping on airliners, going out to, all these, where were choices for, I don't know, they had a whole list about 7 or 8 places you could go on your R&R. They pay for your airfare there and back. They make special deals. So some people actually went home to the United States, but you waste so much travel time. That's all. You're on the other side of the world. It takes you a whole day to get there, a whole day to get back. That's why it's good to go to the close places like Bangkok, Hong Kong, the Asian places, Asian cities.
What was it like going back to Vietnam after being?
It's like they know you're leaving and they know you're coming back, and they know what and you just go back to back to the fire base where you left your pack. All the stuff that you bought, all the junk you bought on your R&R. I had some tailor-made suits in Hong Kong that I bought, and clothes, a couple pairs of shoes. I bought a whole bag, big bags. I bought a piece of luggage to actually put it in. Whole big thing. So I found the warehouse. I said, "Hey, where do the guys store this stuff that they get from their?" So you got to lug it over to a warehouse where they keep it for you. You just bring your ticket back, and then you get you go back to your unit, and you go back to the field. Like nothing happened, Just talk about your R&R for a couple of days, and then it's back to business. That's how it works. It's crazy.
Did you get to see any USO shows?
One, Christmas time. Went to the what was it? Bob Hope had a show because I was one of the senior guys in the field. Let's see, I think I had 9 months about it. No, 6 months. I think was it Christmas time. I think it was about Christmas. There was a USO show because I was one of the senior guys in the field. I don't know if it was right after Christmas. I think I had been out in the field for at least 6 months. I think so. I was one of the senior guys out there. I think myself. Only a few people from like a whole company will get picked because there's so many thousands of troops worth over there. Like when they have a big special event for something, a couple guys from here, a couple guys from there.
Where did you have to go for the US?
So I had to fly to the fire base. And then from the fire base, I think I took another helicopter to some bigger base. And then I think we had to hoof it. We had to walk probably, I don't know how far, in the hot sun to go over to this thing. I'll tell you, it was a lot of work. It was an all-day affair. I would have just as soon stayed in the field and relaxed. All that aggravation I went through. Because overnight, I had to sleep in some temporary, I think I ended up sleeping on the ground, on a fire base someplace. Some transit hut or whatever. It was miserable. I would have rather been on the field with my own personal gear. To tell you the truth. Yeah. So some of these so-called special occasions ain't so special. Like if the guys that live on the big base, if they're workers in the rear and they live in actual, they sleep on actual cots or beds or bunks or what have you. A lot of them have air conditioning. They go to mess halls for meals.
None of that
they
for
wear
you.
Clean clothes every day. No, for grunts in the field, no way. You're digging and dirty every day.
So that was for an entire year. You led that kind of
life. I left. I didn't leave the Ford Fire Support Base until a week before I came home. And then I had to go spend a week at, where was the CAV station at the end there? I think it was back in Benoit or Phu Vinh. Phu Vinh was a big division headquarters. Benoit.
What was the name of it?
Phu Vinh, I think, is where the First Air Cav had a big headquarters base. I remember I spent some time over there. I think we spent a week inside the base and then probably a month of duty patrolling around it. It was a big flat, well, mostly flat area, and there was a lot of towns close by, but we didn't venture in those. We patrolled the area. We call that, what do we call it? Palace guard. That was a cushy deal because it was such a big base with a lot of firepower and aircraft on it that enemy would not venture close to it too much. Like I remember the only enemy action I saw there was we were on the perimeter guard. Okay, they'd have these big guard towers and fighting positions every couple hundred yards. There'd be one, couple hundred, because the place was huge, and they had a big berm bulldozed all the way around it with wire fencing. Beyond that, they had minefields, the fences. They had cut all the trees down, so they'd have guard towers, and they were all crumbling anyhow. I mean, there was probably no major fighting going on for a long time before we got there, but I remember we were in a hot sun on one of these guard towers, and a rocket came over, an enemy rocket. Once in a while, they'd shoot these primitive rockets over the berm into the base, and one of them hit one of these rockets hit one of the buildings where our guys were sleeping. Now, if somebody was taking a nap over there, it could have been wounded. It was in the daytime, though. Most everybody was out. The building was empty, and it was they make a lot of buildings corrugated steel, nothing fancy. It was just like a concrete slab, and they put up 2x4 walls with screens for windows and metal roofs, corrugated steel. That's it. That's the building, and they put cots in there. And, guys coming and go would sleep in there at night because at least they have screens to keep the mosquitoes off you, But, like for temporary positions, they weren't air conditioned or anything. All they had, the electricity was lights. That's it. You still have to use outhouses and everything like that. I mean, it's not like a real building. Yeah, a rocket. One of those rockets. I'm in this thing, and I look down, maybe, I don't know if it's a couple hundred yards. Over the next tower, this missile comes flying into. I says, "Holy shit! Look at that! Boom!" And then we go back and say, "Wow, ain't our guys sleeping over there?" Yeah, boom, big hole in the wall and holes all over. Yeah, a little hole in the ground. Yeah, those they used to. I forget what they call those things. They'd launch them there. Who uses missiles like that? The Palestinians. They shoot them into Israel all the time. It's the same thing. They use aluminum tubing. They're probably 6 feet long, and they use aiming stakes. They light, it's like a giant firecracker. They light the fuse, they run away. And the missile will travel, you know, I don't know how many, couple thousand yards. And then, but they're not, you know, they're an area weapon. It's indiscriminate. They won't. Once they light the fuse, they can't tell where they're going to land. You know, it's just guesswork. They'll know they'll land someplace inside the giant place, but you know, it's rotten luck if you get wounded by those. That's what it was. Rotten luck that hit one of our buildings. But you never know. That's rotten luck that what takes a guy out. Yeah.
Do you recall your last day in Vietnam?
My last day? Yeah. The last day has already. I'm getting out of here. Yeah, just, you gotta, they took us off the line, off the fire base about a week before. You go to the rear. You know what they do? They make sure you're all caught up on your shots and everything to re-enter the United States. They make sure all your paperwork's, you know, the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. You're all caught up on your shots. You gave all your weapons back. You collected all your whatever. And then they put you on an airliner from Benoit. Oakland. I got discharged from the Army in Oakland, California. They got a big center over there. It was, I don't know, from Vietnam, we refueled in the Pacific Ocean someplace. And then the civilian airliner took us, it was daytime, got to this place in Oakland. Over there, they check all your, you know, papers. I had extended, at the end of my tour, 3 or 4 days to stay extra. Over my year, I extended. Because at that time, the Army was demobilizing. The CAV was moving out. They had drastically cut the troop numbers in 1971. So a lot of troops were starting to come home. If you had less than 150 days active duty, you could go straight home. Like, I didn't want to go to Fort Hood, Texas or someplace after being in Vietnam in the middle of the summer. You know, it was June. I says, wow, do I want to go to Fort Hood, Texas for another 5 months? So I found out of that program. So I went to my company, commander, my first sergeant. I want to extend my tour 3 or 4 days, whatever it takes, so I'll have under 150, so I can go straight home. Okay, we'll put it in the papers for you, and they let me do that. So I stayed in Vietnam an extra 3 or 4 days, whatever it was, so I could be under the 150. And so when I got to Oakland, they stamped. So
you were immediately discharged and able to go home?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even spend a whole 2 years in active duty. 20 months, it was all over with. 20 months. In November 1969, I went to Fort Dix, got my basic training out of the way. Then I went to Fort Lewis, got my advanced training out of the way. Well, I made a mistake. Some fella in, was it basic training? Was it before? Anyways, I was in Georgia. I got stationed for Georgia. I got stuck in Georgia for a month, where they had the Fort Benning. They have an NCO school there. Besides, they have a Ranger school. It's close by, and an NCO school. Some Army guy talked me into going to NCO school along the way.
When
I don't know if it was
before or after Vietnam.
I'm trying. No, this is before, and because they go through a lot of NCOs in Vietnam too. All right, all those infantry troops, you need a lot of NCO. Those who gets the work done in the armed forces are non-commissioned officers, NCOs. They're the between the vital cog between the officer corps and the enlisted people. You need a lot of NCOs making sure the work gets done. So I got talked into going to NCO school, which was in Georgia, after Fort Dix, New Jersey, I believe. Yeah, so I went down there, and I decided against going to that because it was only going to keep me in there longer. And I says, big deal, I'm going to go to Vietnam anyhow. What difference does it make if I'm a sergeant or not? You know what? That's only going to give me more responsibility. So I decided against that. So after that, I still got my orders to go to Vietnam after the infantry school, which most of the guys were going anyway. You know, like, I don't know if you had to know somebody or request it ahead of time. A lot of guys went to join the National Guard and the reserves to get out of Vietnam too. Okay, some were doing that. Now, if you had to do that, you'd be automatically out of the fight. You know, some guys would do that, but I want to do the active duty and get rid of my service.
What was your homecoming like?
Homecoming, everybody around here was glad to see me, but Vietnam soldiers, the civilian people, you know, the political climate that time, no. So you don't want to advertise that you're a Vietnam veteran. A lot of people, there's a lot of disdain there, a lot of hostility. No. Some people that are, like I went to work, when I applied for my job at Stanley Works after the service, guess who was my first foreman at Stanley Works? He was a guy on a selective service board.
No kidding.
Yeah, he was one of these guys that picked who to draft. Yeah. Well, I got hired right away anyhow. But yeah. And then at that time still there were a lot of World War II veterans around, especially in the shops, you know. A lot of World War II veterans, Korean veterans still in the shops. They understood Vietnam guys, but like a lot of people I went to school with, I think there was me and another guy out of my graduating class that went to Vietnam. I remember this one guy. He became an officer, I believe, later on. Lewis and me. Everybody else went to college to get out of it. College students, you got deferred, most of the time. Yeah. Because I went to St. Thomas Aquinas High School, and most of those folks went to...
Did you go back to school on the GI Bill at all?
No, I did for a short while, but I quit. I wanted to make money. I wanted to get married and make money. No. I had a good job. When I got drafted, I was working in a garage after high school. I had a good job, making good money. Then I got that draft notice. Boy, that threw a monkey wrench in everything. And everybody else that I went to school with was going to college, most of them. And I used to read about it and see. I even went to some of the anti-war demonstrations just for the hell of it. But I said, hey, I wouldn't be somebody to go to Canada or something like that. A lot of people are going, who knows where, skipping out to Europe and Canada to get away from the draft. I says, how could you do that? You know, and they threaten them. If you're a draft dodger in those days, they threaten to prison you. So who would do that?
Did you stay in touch with any of your buddies from Vietnam?
No. Never got. Just, hey, when you're out there, you know, you say you want to go look them up, this and that, but I mean, it goes by. I mean, there was very few people that you get to know that good. You're so busy doing a job, you know, that you're on, you know, it's like working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No, in the field, there are no holidays, days off, and all that stuff. You're on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's it. And, you know, there's no time to, everybody has their own individual schedule. Depending on when they get in, they're counting. They start counting that 365 days, year to go by. When they're going on their R&R, and when they're going home. It's, you know,
Did you join any military groups, any veterans organizations afterwards?
I went to work. Not really. No. You want to forget about that. Vietnam veterans, they get a whole lot of respect and all that. A lot of guys would go to the, they talk you sometimes, VFW, American Legion. I didn't join like the American Legion for years afterwards.
Did you join finally?
Yeah, but I didn't hardly spend any time or anything too much.
Are you a member of anything now?
No.
Jerry, how would you say your military experience influenced your thinking about war?
Oh, that's one of the last things you ever want to do. Wars. That's the last thing people want to. It's like a license to do all kind of criminal things. It's crazy. No.
How did your military experience affect your life?
Well, it teaches a lot of good skills, I guess. Good and bad, I suppose. Good. A sense of responsibility and all. Teaches you that it's a dangerous world out there. Most troops, all they want to do is go home, live a quiet life. You don't want to get too involved in stuff that only provokes arguments. Yeah. It's a dangerous world out there.
Is there anything else that you can recall that we haven't discussed already, or any other memorable experiences or incidents while you were in Vietnam?
Yes and no, not a whole lot. Not the average soldiers, combat soldiers. A lot of things they probably want to just as soon forget, not speak of. It might seem boring, but I don't know. You just hope you get through it without getting hurt or having to harm somebody really bad. That's all. You just hope you glide through.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your service and thank you for sharing your story.